I stared at the man across my desk, barely recognizing the father who had abandoned our family 15 years ago. His expensive suit couldn't mask the desperation in his eyes as he leaned forward, his voice a mix of entitlement and forced charm. "Come on, Olivia," he said, spreading his hands in what he probably thought was a disarming gesture. "I'm your father. Everything you have, all this success, you wouldn't be here without me. Don't I deserve to share in it?" My name is Olivia Carter, and at 35, I'm the CEO of Carter Tech Solutions, a company I built from the ground up into a $10 million enterprise. The irony of my father showing up now, after years of silence, wasn't lost on me. He had walked out when I was 20, leaving my mother and me with nothing but debt and broken promises. "Share in it," I repeated, keeping my voice steady despite the anger simmering beneath the surface. "Like you shared in our struggles after you left? Like you shared in Mom's medical bills when she got sick?" He had the decency to look uncomfortable, but only for a moment. "The past is the past, Olivia. I've changed. I've learned from my mistakes. And now," he gestured at my office, the floor-to-ceiling windows overlooking the New York skyline. "Now look at you. You've done so well for yourself. Surely you can spare something for your old man?" I studied him carefully, his designer watch, manicured nails, and perfectly styled hair. He looked successful, but I knew better. My private investigator had been thorough. His gambling habits hadn't changed, just the stakes. He had burned through his third wife's inheritance, and rumor had it he owed money to some dangerous people. "Why now?" I asked, though I already knew the answer. 15 years, Dad, not a single call, not even when Mom died. He flinched, but recovered quickly. I wasn't in a good place then, Olivia. I couldn't face you both after everything, but I've been following your success in the news. Carter Tech's breakthrough in renewable energy storage, the government contracts, the Forbes feature. He leaned forward, his eyes gleaming. "I'm proud of you, sweetheart." The words I had once longed to hear now felt hollow. I thought about all the nights I had spent working multiple jobs while putting myself through engineering school. About Mom working herself to exhaustion at the diner to help with my tuition until her health gave out. Those early days of Carter Tech, operating out of my tiny apartment, living on ramen and coffee while refining my prototypes. Where was he then? "How much?" I asked quietly. His eyes lit up. "Well, considering everything, I think half would be fair." I cut him off with a laugh. "Half? Of Carter Tech? You think you deserve half of what I built?" "I'm your father," he said, his tone hardening. "Everything you are, you got from me. That brilliant mind of yours? Those are my genes. Your determination. I taught you that." I stood up and walked to the window, the rain tracing patterns on the glass. I thought about another rainy day 15 years ago when he had walked at our door for the last time. "You know what I got from you, Dad?" I turned back to face him. "I learned how to spot manipulation. I learned that people will say anything when they want something. And I learned that blood doesn't mean loyalty." He stood up, his facade cracking. "Now listen here." "No, you listen," I said, my voice steel. "You want money. Fine. Come back tomorrow at noon. I'll have something for you." His anger melted into a grin. "I knew you'd understand, sweetheart. You always were my clever girl." As I watched him leave, I thought about the envelope I would prepare for him. He had no idea what was coming, but for the first time in 15 years, I was actually glad to see him. Because tomorrow, he would learn exactly what kind of clever girl he had helped create. That evening, as I sat in my penthouse reviewing the documents my lawyer had prepared, my phone buzzed. It was Rachel, my best friend since college and now Carter Tech's chief legal officer. "Tell me you're not really giving him anything," she said without preamble. I smiled, though she couldn't see it. "Trust me, Rachel. I know exactly what I'm doing. Olivia, I've seen this before. He's just going to take whatever you give him and come back for more. Men like that, they're never satisfied." "I know," I said, looking at the papers spread across my coffee table. "That's what I'm counting on." After hanging up, I walked to my home office, unlocking the bottom drawer of my desk. Inside was a worn shoebox filled with newspaper clippings, old photos, and documents I had collected over the years. Every article about my father's failed businesses, every court record of his divorces, every piece of evidence of his schemes and betrayals, I had them all. Tomorrow would change everything, but not in the way he expected. The next morning, I arrived at the office early. My assistant, Mark, was already there, organizing the day's schedule. Your father's appointment is confirmed for noon, he said, his tone carefully neutral. Mark had been with me since the early days of Carter Tech. He knew enough about my past to understand the significance of this meeting. Perfect, I said. Make sure security is ready, but discreet, and have Rachel come up as soon as she arrives. At 11:55, my phone buzzed. He's here, Mark texted. I took a deep breath, straightened my jacket, and prepared myself for what would likely be the last conversation I would ever have with my father. Right on cue, he strutted into my office, looking even more confident than yesterday. "Olivia, sweetheart," he said, spreading his arms like he wanted a hug. I remained seated, and his arms dropped awkwardly to his sides. "I knew you'd do the right thing. Family has to stick together, right?" I gestured to the chair across from my desk. "Sit down, Dad. We have a lot to discuss." He sat, practically vibrating with anticipation. I opened my desk drawer and pulled out the envelope he was so eager to see. "Before I give you this," I said, holding it just out of his reach, "I want to tell you a story about what happened after you left." By the time I finished speaking, his face had gone pale. When I finally placed the contract in front of him, detailing his two options, one granting him financial security in exchange for permanent silence, the other exposing his entire past to the world, he understood. His hands trembled as he picked up the pen. "You really are my daughter," he whispered. "No," I set my voice firm. "I'm my mother's daughter. She taught me perseverance, integrity, and love. You taught me what happens when you lack all three." He signed. And just like that, I was free. Nathan picked up the pen, his hand trembling slightly. $5 million to disappear forever? To never contact me again, I corrected. "What you do with your life after this isn't my concern, as long as you stay away from mine." As he signed the contract, I thought about Mom. She hadn't lived to see Miller Tech's success, but she had believed in it, in me, until the end. This moment, this victory, was as much hers as mine. Olivia quickly notarized the documents and handed Nathan a sealed envelope containing the wire transfer details. "The funds will be available within 24 hours, she explained clinically. "After that, any attempt to contact Ms. Miller will result in immediate legal action and forfeiture of the entire amount." He nodded, clutching the envelope like a lifeline. As security arrived to escort him out, he turned back one last time. "Eleanor, Goodbye, Dad," I said, already turning back to my computer. "I trust you can find your way out." After you left, Olivia stayed behind, watching me carefully. "Are you okay?" I let out a long breath I hadn't realized I was holding. "I'm better than okay. For the first time in 15 years, I feel free." $5 million is a lot of money, she observed, even for Miller Tech. I smiled, thinking about what she didn't know yet. It's worth every penny to ensure he never comes back. Besides, I turned my laptop to show her the screen. The money isn't coming from Miller Tech. Her eyes widened as she read the display. "Is that the predictive trading algorithm I developed last year?" I nodded. While we were having our little family reunion, it was completing a series of perfectly timed trades. We just made $12 million, more than enough to cover Nathan's payoff and then some. Olivia laughed, shaking her head in amazement. "You really did think of everything." "I had 15 years to plan," I reminded her. "But now it's time to focus on the future. We have that green energy contract presentation this afternoon." As Olivia left my office, I took one last look at the Chicago skyline. The morning haze had completely lifted, leaving the city bright and clear. It felt like a sign, the shadows of my past finally clearing, making way for whatever came next. I opened my desk drawer and pulled out the old shoebox of documents, all those years of tracking my father, collecting evidence, preparing for this moment. I didn't need any of it anymore. Picking up my phone, I called Daniel. "Could you have someone take this box to the shredder? And then clear my afternoon schedule. I think it's time we had that staff appreciation lunch I've been promising." It was time to focus on the people who actually deserved my attention. My team, my friends, the family I had chosen for myself. I'd spent enough energy on the past. The news of my father's sudden wealth and subsequent disappearance spread quickly through Chicago's business circles. Speculation ran wild. Some said I bought him off, others claimed he blackmailed me. I let them talk. The truth was far more satisfying, but it was mine to keep. 3 months after our final meeting, I sat in my office reviewing Miller Tech's latest quarterly reports. Our renewable energy division had exceeded all projections, and the new government contracts were proceeding smoothly. Life had settled into a comfortable rhythm, free from the weight of waiting for my father to resurface. "Ms. Miller?" Daniel appeared in my doorway. "There's someone here to see you," she says she's your sister. I froze, my hand hovering over the keyboard. Sister? A young woman stepped into view behind Daniel. She couldn't have been more than 20, with familiar dark eyes that made my heart skip a beat. "Hi," she said nervously. "I'm Charlotte. Charlotte Hayes. Nathan Miller is my father." The world seemed to tilt slightly. Of course he had another family, another daughter. Why was I even surprised? "Let her in, Daniel," I said, keeping my voice steady. "And hold my calls." Charlotte perched awkwardly on the edge of the chair my father had occupied 3 months ago. Up close, the resemblance was undeniable. She had his chin, his way of fidgeting when nervous. "I'm sorry to show up like this," she began. "I found out about you recently. Dad, he came home 3 months ago with a lot of money and a lot of secrets. Then last week, he disappeared again. Mom finally told me everything." I studied her carefully. Everything. About his other family. About you and your mom. About Miller Tech. She twisted her hands in her lap. "I always knew he wasn't a good person, but I never knew the extent of it until now." "Why are you here, Charlotte?" I asked gently. She lifted her chin, and in that moment she looked less like our father and more like someone determined to break free of his shadow. "Because I'm starting college next semester. Engineering, actually. And I don't want his money. I don't want anything from him. I thought maybe you'd understand that better than anyone." I felt something shift inside me, not quite sympathy, but recognition. Here was another young woman determined to build her own path, to be more than Nathan Miller's daughter. "Where are you planning to study?" I asked. "I got into MIT," she said, a hint of pride breaking through her nervousness. "But I'm still figuring out the financial aid situation. Mom's a teacher, and now with Dad gone again." I opened my laptop, typing quickly. "MIT's engineering program is excellent. I almost went there myself but couldn't afford it at the time." I turned the screen toward her, showing her Miller Tech's internship program details. "We offer full scholarships to promising engineering students. The application deadline isn't for another month." Her eyes widened. Are you suggesting?" "I'm suggesting you apply, Charlotte, like any other candidate. No special treatment. You'll have to earn it on your own merits. But if you're half as determined to succeed as you seem, I have a feeling you'll do just fine." Tears welled in her eyes. "Why would you help me, after everything he did?" "Because you're not him," I said simply. "Neither of us is. And maybe it's time we showed the world what Miller women can do when we support each other instead of letting him tear us apart." She wiped her eyes, straightening in her chair. "I won't let you down." "Don't worry about letting me down," I told her. "Focus on not letting yourself down. That's the only standard that matters." The future was bright, and it belonged to us, the daughters who refused to let one man's failures define our destiny. That night, as I finally headed home, I thought about cycles breaking and new beginnings. About a young woman who walked into my office carrying the weight of a name she didn't choose and walked out with the promise of a future she could build for herself. Sometimes the best revenge isn't about making someone pay for their mistakes. Sometimes it's about building something so magnificent that their absence becomes irrelevant.